Hey there guys, this is Obsidian Show. Got another video for you today. This is coming from the test server, a part of episode 48, Harley Quinn vs. Apokolips. We are looking at the new 8-player Elite Raid Subjukator construction site. Now, to get a few talking points out of the way first, we do not have an official release date announced yet. Typically it's on test server for 2 weeks, would put this at kind of like a mid-September release. But once the release date is known, obviously it'll be publicly available. The second talking point that usually comes up is max CR. I am only half elite and do not have the OP item, so I would imagine max CR would be around like 464 if I'm guessing. But obviously, once again, once I have that, I'll make a separate video. And that the OP item is the OP waste. So, taking a look at this raid, it's going to draw a lot of parallels from, or you're going to see a lot of parallels from Darkseid War Factory, which makes sense because this episode is based on Apokolips, so obviously you're going to pull content from Apokolips that we've fought before, which would be heavily favored to Darkseid War Factory. And the other thing that I noticed is if you kind of watch the solo and the alert videos, which I have previously out, is that there's kind of the prevailing theme of a lot of ads. This is a very AoE based DLC compared to some others. Typically all the boss fights have ads associated with them. Obviously, there's a lot of hallway ads. Now there is an augment breakthrough rank 24, which is one off the highest. It's plus 2.5% damage to non-boss ads. So non-boss. So, all right, basically any NPCs in the raid, in the alert, in the solo, and open world, you get technically plus 5% damage if you have both augments ranks breakthrough. So it seems that's the first time they've done that, where they've tied specifically damage. Usually it's just a stat buff, but now they've actually, or it's like a damage reduction from in episode mechanics. But now they've tied it directly to damage, which, I mean, augments. People towards the end of the episode, or after the first couple weeks, plenty of people have their augments at that point. They're not the easiest to level quickly unless you're using like the broker or the marketplace. So I mean, some people may consider that a bit pay to winish, or basically pay to have extra damage, because I mean that's 5% damage you're going to be missing on, and that's all rolls too. So that's DPS, tank, healer, troller, all have the same augment rank. So that's 5% damage you're missing on all ads by not having your augments leveled like day one. So it's certainly appealing more for the DPS at that point. So I mean, take it how you leave it. Now, what you just saw here, where we fought a bunch of ads in General Kraze, there's no reason why this should not be a boss fight. Because, I mean, spoiler, you can see from the length of this video, it's not very long raid, considering it's like 15-16 minutes, and this is on test server, where everyone's mostly under geared. So, I mean, on live server, this will probably be like a 10-12 minute elite raid, if not less than 10 minutes. So, the issue I find here is that because there's only 2 boss fights, this first one should be a boss fight. There's absolutely no reason why this encounter we just had could not be turned into a boss. General Kraze could be a boss. We have to fire why would we waste time defeating all the ads and then firing those cannons? Why would we just build them at the same time? You can make that an encounter. That platform is big enough easily for a boss room. You could enclose it around so that if you die, you can't get into it. I mean, that's from like a logistics point of view, that's simple. In terms of how the fight would be structured, you would have General Kraze trying, either having some sort of attack or some way to stop you from loading those cannons and firing off the attacks at Darkseid. If you recall the raid called Monsters of Metal, at the end where we had to carry those canisters to Batman, Batman Laughs, or the one who laughs. Yeah, it was the one who laughs. Or was that the alert? Either way. But we had to carry those canisters, you lost your powers, you were slowed, you took extra damage, and then you had to basically, like a baton pass off the carry. You could do the same thing with those ammo crates. Have it be slowed, you take damage, you have to pass it to the next player, because then you have half the group working to fire those cannons, and then you have half the group defeating General Kraze in the ads. So that's perfectly set up for a boss fight. There's no reason why it's not to, especially if you're going to have one raid in an episode, you can't have 2 bosses. You really need to have 3. This episode is still going to last us what, like 3-4 months probably, like easily into Q1. So you're going to have some sort of content to justify that, because as you saw in that EG7 intern video, episode 47, Brainiac Returns, did not have the engagement they were expecting. So are we thinking that a bunch of players are going to come back for episode 48, get bored with it because it's so short worth of content, and then all of a sudden go back to playing episode 47, which people didn't find enjoyable in the first place? So that's the question there. But that's certainly feedback that I would give, that General Kraze should be turned into an actual boss encounter. So we're on our first encounter here with Granny Goodness, the actual first boss fight. Another kind of awkward cinematic, at least in my mind. The lighting seems a bit weird on Granny Goodness, but once again, that could be me, or I could just be overly being critical of cinematics. But in this boss fight, it's going to be a lot of parallels to the Darkseid War Factory encounter. We're in the exact same room. She's got the same mechanics that she's going to have in terms of she's got an attack and a shield drone. Although it does seem a lot easier because in Darkseid War Factory, at least in Darkseid War Factory Elite, the shield drone, you could not damage Granny Goodness through that. You had to defeat the shield drone, then go back to Granny Goodness. In this fight, you can still... I saw the shield animation, but I was still damaging her through it. It could maybe just be like a defense buff, but it was still taking enough damage through it compared to no damage as before. Other than that, Granny Goodness has her AoE attack. She has her projectiles that she fires, all the same. It's basically Granny Goodness being the exact same. As you can see, kind of spread out around the room, there's 4 boom tubes that spawn with ads. So, it's a heavy ad encounter. You could get to the point where you could probably solo tank it. It's going to be annoying because, for one, you've got multiple Grenader ads that fire mortars as well when they spawn. So, the ads themselves are annoying. They were annoying in Darkseid War Factory too. That's why you had a lot of times people had it in the second, like atomic tank, so that it was easy enough to kind of teleport and juggle the ads back then. But in terms of what the mechanics are in this fight, you'll see on the right-hand side paint amplifier discharge and paint amplifier charging. So the one of the parademons, could be the soldier, I forget exactly which one, but once they spawn through the boom tubes, you're going to see these canisters that they pick up, and they walk towards the center with the canisters, which charges the paint amplifier, which was that earlier, that red beam that you saw. Now, it's not a one-shot. I think it only did like 200k damage, so really... it's inconsequential. You can destroy those canisters just by simply brawling tapping, so it could be up for the healer or the controller if you want to go that route. Or you just kind of CC them and they'll drop the canister. They'll go try to pick it up again, but at the same time you can just keep pulling with the tank. Ideally, you want to separate the ads from Granny Goodness like we're doing here. It just makes it foolproof. You can't fail that way, and you just single target Granny Goodness down. But I'm sure on live server, it'll get to the point where it's solo tanked, but that's it here. So obviously, not very difficult encounter. I think there needs to be much more of a focus on that pain amplifier. It needs to be pretty much like a one-shot, or maybe takes everyone down to a scripted health, 10% health or something. So it doesn't matter if you overgear it, it's still going to damage you to a set health. Because then it puts more of an emphasis on making sure that the ads don't pick up the canisters, that you're stopping them from carrying it or destroying them rather than just ignoring it completely. So while a lot of elements were taken for this raid from Darkseid War Factory, I feel like the other semi-apocalypse based raid, Fractured Godsphere, was another one that they could have taken a lot of elements from. Fractured Godsphere was an amazing raid. The Zeus final boss fight does make a lot of sense in terms of this context, but there's plenty of content you could take from that Grail fight that would easily translate to all this raid. You've got the Grail damage check, you've got the spinning axis to kind of cut off the room size, a lot of different aspects. So I feel you can't just take everything from Darkseid War Factory in this case. Obviously the map is inspired by it. Obviously the ads are taken from it. You've got Granny Goodness, and then, spoiler. Obviously if it's a Harley Quinn vs. Apokolips episode, we're going to fight Darkseid again. So that's obviously the final boss is going to be Darkseid. But I really feel like there's certainly potential. I say that each time there's a lot of potential for raids. There was a lot of potential, say Halls of Justice, a part of episode 47, Brainiac Returns, but it just ended up missing the mark. There's so many good raids that DC's done. There's so many good mechanics that DC's done, but it seems like they're just... I understand that you have to recycle content. We can't expect each like brand new maps, brand new content, a brand new everything, brand new bosses each and every episode. I mean, that's not realistic. I mean, that'd be great if it was, but I mean, DC vs. Online has been out for 13 years. We've got, you know, obviously 48 episodes worth of content now. I mean, it's obviously fair that you can recycle parts of it, but as long as you're recycling the good parts, which it seems like they're just missing the mark on. You know, if you're gonna, you know, basically treat a raid as a puzzle and kind of like mix and match parts from different raids or different mechanics, or make them work for whatever, like say like the theme is on an episode. There's certainly much better examples you can do that for. They seem to be recycling the same number of mechanics, or same thing. I mean, we don't have the feats out for this episode yet, but I mean, it's pretty safe to say we're gonna have like, okay, do this feat in regular, now do the feat same thing in elite, now do the same feat in elite plus. We're gonna have that a bunch of times, which is, you know, uninspiring. I mean, they could certainly change, and we could be wrong, but you know, I'm pretty sure that's what we're going to see, because that's just what they choose to do each cycle. But just seems like there's a lot of opportunity, and I mean, this is still early. I mean, it just came out in public test. We still have 2 weeks. It's just depending on their scheduling or what kind of you know, resources they can allocate to making adjustments to the raid at this point. Unless it's just like maybe just correcting bug fixes at this point. Hopefully that's not the case, because like I said before, General Kraze, that should and has to be made into a boss fight. There's certainly aspects of the Granny Goodness fight that has to change, and then we're going to get into the final encounter here. It's the same thing, just like that kind of first area with Kraze. We had to load the cannons, you know, outside of an encounter. Now we have to detonate these explosives. I mean, this could easily be part of the counter. We're just kind of wasting time. And here, same thing. We're going to have some Boom Tomb spawn, and then eventually we're going to fight Kalibak. And same thing. I mean, the Kalibak and some of those other bosses that are tied to Apokolips that we fought during lockdown. I'm sure a few other times as well. I just when I think Kalibak, I think of lockdown in terms of his charging. He had that little mace that he uses as well. So you can see him eventually right here. But I mean, same thing. It's heavily tied to ads, which they've seen before, just like, you know, TT in terms of like, you know, just multiple ad sets spawning before boss spawns. But I think it's going to be more tied into that augment rank, where they're thinking, oh yeah, there's going to be tons of ads. That makes you know, more effort to level up those augments to rank 24. So you do everyone in the group does extra 5% damage. So that's their thinking that, you know, justifies the more ads, because they're going to be dying faster. So when Kalibak comes out here, it's going to be a little bit interesting. It's going to definitely throw a lot of people off in terms of expectations. It's funny to see the reactions each time like a new person runs the elite raid, thinking, oh, this is like an officially a boss fight. We're going to fight Kalibak, you know, and then you start to DPS them. Everyone drops their supercharges and orbitals and allies. And then all of a sudden you're going to see in a moment here, after doing like 5% damage, it's a fake boss fight. And then Darkseid comes out, and then you're going to notice again it's a different voice actor for Darkseid, because because of the voice actor strike, which is why the voice actors are all different. You've got kind of an awkward sounding Darkseid, but then when you're actually fighting Darkseid in the raid itself, like his encounter, it's his old voice cues from Darkseid War Factory. So then you have his kind of voice speeches from there, but in terms of his kind of cutscene cinematic voice, that changed. So that's kind of weird, that kind of mismatch. So now we're fighting Darkseid. Now this encounter does have some new mechanics based to it. Once again, it's a very large room. That's why I felt you could certainly have like the spinning axis from that Fractured God Sphere fight. Just something to cut up the room. You saw those Omega Orbitals before. That's similar to the Grail one, where if you stand in, it's not a one shot, but it's like takes you like 75% health damage off. So obviously you get hit by stacking them, you're going to die. That was the other main mechanic. So each time he has like a large blaster on the room, it's going to have this cog terminal that's going to come up. You don't have to turn the cog or anything like that. You just stand behind the terminal. The wall is going to come up, which basically just blocks off the damage. It also kills the ads at the same time. You also saw the same, unfortunately, recycled mechanic for the green from basically the marked player from Source Wall Elite Plus, or Source Wall Elite in general. That's been recycled 4 or 5 times. For me personally, once again, I would bring back like a damage, because I mean, this is a Darkseid fight. We're supposed to be Darkseid's not supposed to be pushover. I mean, this is much easier than the Granny Goodness fight, because I mean, even these large room mechanics, like say this mechanic right here, Darkseid's not doing anything. He's standing in the center. You stand behind a wall, which is not an issue. The ads get wiped by the beam too, as you can see. So, I mean, there's no reason a player should be dying to that at all. Even if the tank brought some of the ads over, you just kind of fight the ads, stun them, whatever, and then or push them back to the Darkseid beam's going to wipe them. So I really feel like they could add like bring back a damage check, where if you don't deal enough damage to Darkseid, his Omega Beams target a player and then, you know, basically one-shots them. Which, you know, people may disagree with the damage check, but at the same time, we have an extra rally for Elite now compared to what we did before. So really, it's not just 2 deaths now, you have an extra death. So, I mean, that's a possibility there. It makes sense for the damage check. Plus, with all the artifact and ally combinations we have, I think it definitely warrants or justifies a damage check mechanic back again. They could also bring back the Omega Beam in terms of the transfer, where like that was another fight or element to that Darkseid War Factory fight, where you had to basically transfer that beam to a player so that it didn't wipe them. So, I mean, that's a possibility as well. I mean, you don't need an NPC, once again, like Superman to transfer the arrow to, because we have an extra health. So you just basically choose a roll to die. Because, I mean, it's just... This fight certainly has a lot of potential. There just isn't enough going on. I mean, Darkseid, once again, you can't counter him, so he's, there's no aspect from there. He does his charge, which the charge was an issue in Darkseid War Factory Elite because it's a smaller room. This one's huge, so there's no reason why anyone's going to be close to Darkseid or not see him, because before you had ads, you had Granny Goodness, you had Darkseid, you had the center of the room damage, so basically it was easy to miss the Darkseid charge because he was basically at your back. So it's just a lot of potential. Same thing with the funny Synanic with the hammer not showing up, but I'm sure that's just a bug again. But we're almost at the end here. We can kind of carry on the conversation in the comment section, but there's a lot of feedback that I can give for this raid that hopefully will be taken into account, where we can have an improvement. So take care, guys. We'll see you next video.